Hey everybody, welcome to another show of Counselors and Coffee. Picking up our next guest today. Her name is Angie, and we'll let her tell you a little bit about herself. Hello.
Hello. Nice wheels.
Thanks. Welcome to Counselors and Coffee.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Here's your coffee. Today's coffee is brought to you by Costco.
Cheers.
Cheers. Last show I think it did. We had Dunkin' Donuts. This time Pressed for Time, but we had Costco coffee. And
it up.
you used to be a Starbucks barista, right?
I did. I think they've done a lot of like tricky taste tests too, where they asked people if they knew what the Starbucks coffee was, and sometimes it was actually Costco or McDonald's.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Counselors and Coffee. Woo woo. Are you nervous at all?
Having me. Yeah, I'm really nervous.
I was nervous last time too.
Really?
Why are you nervous?
I feel like the thoughts that I want to share will probably come to me later.
Oh. Well, that's the magic of editing.
Okay.
Hey, Angie.
Hey.
So, you don't have to tell us where you work, or your last name, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your where you are in your counseling journey.
Oh, okay. Well, I graduated from my counseling degree program last May.
Whoop, whoop.
And yeah, I can't believe it's already been a year. But I've been working in crisis mental health for 5 years and became a therapist when I graduated. So
Okay. So when we talked about this show and coming on and chatting a bit, you had an area that you wanted to chat about. What is that?
I was thinking about talking about, well, I'd heard about this book that it came out yesterday, and it was a woman, she's a therapist, and she wrote a book about the parallel process of getting your own counseling and providing counseling at the same time.
Ooh.
So I was thinking about just talking about that process and how it kind of transforms you as a counselor.
Well, it's interesting there's actually a book about it, because in preparation for this, I was trying to look at different YouTube videos, different articles about counselors and a counseling experience, and there wasn't a lot. I printed off, I did find a couple things. I tried to go the other route and said why counselors don't go to therapy.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there's still not a ton. The article talked about therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists, like the ballpark of all those folks, all us folks, and what they, why they go to therapy or why they don't. And actually 48% of them from the study in Seattle said that they don't because of fear of stigma and job-related repercussions. And I thought that was interesting.
That's
because
really interesting.
What would we tell people about counseling?
Yeah.
People who are like, I don't know, I think counseling's stupid. What would we tell them? Yet 48% of us don't heed our own advice.
Exactly.
So it's like, I wonder, why do you think that is?
I guess when I was in graduate school, I don't know much about if you experienced this in your program, but I feel like there was so much fear that we had as students about letting our stuff interfere with the client's process. So we ended up starting just being even more rigid and more afraid of being curious about ourselves.
Ooh.
So it was like this, in an attempt to be so professional, we actually blocked ourselves from our own therapeutic process.
Interesting.
And I completely agree with the stigma around getting our own counseling, because even amongst professionals, there's it is very unusual to hear someone talk about seeking their own help. And
that is true. So, because that reminds me, when I was in school, they talked about the possibility, if you're trying to get your licensure, that if you do have diagnosed mental health issues, that you could have roadblocks to getting your licensure. And so the immediate thought in my head was, well, I'm not going to go see anybody if they're going to diagnose me, because I'm not going to pay all this money for school and then not be able to do this.
Right.
Where I can understand it from one perspective, but on the other hand, actually the study said it was 80-something% of people in the helping field have a diagnosable issue. Most of them mild, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, things like that. But 80-some% have a diagnosable issue. So it's like, well, and we're still doing great. Like, people are still getting help, right? But yeah, when I heard that, and when we hear that, like, we're still like, oh, I can't go forward. I can't talk. I can't meet with people because of my issues. Like, I don't want to get my job taken away.
Exactly. I've heard a lot of people share that fear. Going to certain mental health centers they won't allow you to keep going unless you have a diagnosis.
Yeah. It's like, well, I just need to talk with someone. Like,
right.
And like, you only get, sometimes it's only 6 sessions. If you don't pay out of your pocket, it's 6 sessions or 8 sessions per issue, but it has to be a diagnosable thing per issue. And it's like, well, I just want to meet with someone. I don't need like a diagnosis to talk about my stuff. But the way the system works and reimbursement works, like, yeah, you do.
Exactly.
So for me, I think that was a big reason I didn't go for a while, until a school said we had to. Even saying this out loud, it's like, as a therapist, I didn't go to therapy until I had to.
Right.
I think your clients feel the same way.
I know it feels so hypocritical when we talk about it, but
I know, right?
The stigma is very real.
It's like, one, I don't want to get labeled with a diagnosis. I hate labels. I think that's my own personal thing of like people putting me in a box and this is you. I was like, don't tell me who I am, what I am. You don't know anything about me. This is very parallel processing for clients go through. See, we're people too.
Exactly.
But yeah, I didn't go for a while, and then I finally went because we had to, and I was actually helpful, but it took me a while to actually feel like I was getting any traction. Like, I felt guarded for a long time. So I'm guessing, well, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, no.
I'm guessing you've had counseling.
Yep.
Okay, since you've been in school and stuff.
I have. I remember hearing it from my professors over and over and over for the first few years, and I actually didn't seek counseling until I was in my final year of graduate school. And I remember a big thing holding me back was the fear of diagnosis and what I might uncover about myself, and also the fear of, because certain mental health centers wouldn't hire you if you've been a former client. So
really?
I wanted to continue, I wanted to be able to not be limited. When I was looking for my internships and looking for future jobs. So I ended up finding one counseling center that I thought I may not want to work in the future, but I still heard good things about it.
What's their name? Just kidding.
And when I got paired with a counselor, she ended up being a fellow student who I was in the graduate program with. And
wow.
I almost quit on the spot because I was so just mortified.
Oh, wow.
And luckily it ended up being a good experience. We just kind of, it allowed us to be pretty open with each other about how stressful the program was and everything. And she helped me find a counselor who had no affiliation with our school program. So
talk about vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
It was a very humbling process because I feel like in class we did have our guards up in that way. The focus was all about the clients and not about ourselves.
Well, kudos to going through with it. I think I would have been like, nope, walk away, turn around.
Yeah, it's just the beginning of a very hard process because the more you learn about yourself, you worry that it'll mean you're not a good therapist or, you'll be left with more questions than answers for a while. So it's so messy, and you just have to stick with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting distinction that we could look at for therapists, because, you know, we talk about, you know, we're people too, we're humans too. We struggle with stuff, we get annoyed with stuff, but I think the typical population, they leave from their work, whatever it is, if they're, stay-at-home mom or corporate world or construction, whatever, the whole gamut, they have their world, they leave that world, come to counseling, and it's confidential, you know, all this stuff. I don't know you, you don't know me, and we chat, and then they go back to their world and they kind of incorporate what we discussed and into their life. Whereas we do it, I know for me, it's like I'm leaving my world to stay in my world, to have counseling from someone who's doing the same job as I am. So it's almost like I'm comparing myself. And also, so like, when the counseling's done, it's hard to, okay, just leave it and go back to your work, because it's, well, should I be doing those kind of questions in my counseling?
So true.
They didn't ask this. They're not that good, so I'm better than they are. So this is a waste of time. I'll just look in the mirror and ask myself some questions, because of my awesomeness. I can just cure myself.